We have emergency breaking news. Seattle Torrent head coach Steve O'Rourke has been fired by the Torrent, and we're going to talk about what that means coming up next.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm Zane Begg, and I'm a Seattle-based journalist covering the Seattle Supersonics, Torrent, and Kraken, and welcome to Locked On Kraken, where we cover not only the Kraken, but also the Seattle Torrent, because they are both tenants at Climate Pledge Arena, and the Kraken are very heavily involved in the operations of the Torrent, the sponsor. They constructed the practice facility, and Seattle Torrent head coach Steve O'Rourke has been fired, announced earlier today, just like an hour ago, before this recording, by the Torrent. It was just a real brief statement. This is what the Torrent. Megan Turner, Seattle Torrent general manager, today announced the team head coach Steve O'Rourke have parted ways. We are grateful to Steve for his contributions to the Seattle Torrent during our inaugural season. We wish him and his family nothing but the best in his future, said Turner. The Torrent will begin the search for their next head coach immediately. Seattle finished its inaugural season in 8th place out of 8 in the Professional Women's Hockey League standings with 31 points and an overall record of 8-1-5-16. So, all right. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by any of this. I was surprised when they fired Dave Haxtell. I was very surprised when they fired Dan Bilesma. But after 1 year, I was not surprised that they fired Steve O'Rourke, and here's why. I like Steve. I really liked him. I thought he was a great guy, just a great person, really personable. We had him on this podcast, and I was just a delightful conversation. I thought he was really thoughtful, really insightful, and someone who I would like to spend a lot of time on. You know, if you have the thought exercise of like, who would you rather be in a car with on a road trip to Florida? And it's like, well, would you rather do it with Nathan McKinnon or Marc-Andre Fleury? It's like, Marc-Andre Fleury, pretty sure. On the Kraken, would you rather go on a road trip with Joey Decord or Mason Marchment? Okay, I think I hang out with Joey. Same kind of thing here, right? Steve O'Rourke, that guy is like way high on the road trip rankings. He's interesting. He's funny. He seems emotionally intelligent. He's just he seems like a great hang. And I think that it seems like those types of coaches can connect with players. I didn't get a sense of any animosity or any tension with him. Although I will say with the Torrent, it's a lot different because they don't provide a locker room access. It's just after the game, you go into a room and they bring out people, predetermined people. It's like 2 players and then the coach. And then you sit in that room and they ask some questions and then that's it, which is different than the locker room atmosphere. And it's really kind of shocking how much you can pick up on a team's dynamic just by being around, even just in the post-game locker room, when it's also a fairly tightly controlled environment, but there is a certain level of like relaxing or not presenting a strong front or a facade. It's just less controlled, and you end up getting a stronger sense from the players about whether they're happy or unhappy. Especially there are some litmus test players like Jared McCann will always let you know if he's happy or unhappy. A couple of years ago, I remember after a long losing streak, and you saw Jared McCann, he's just got his head in his hands. He's just sitting in a stall, and he's not even one of the people who was brought out to talk to the press. He was just so despondent. He didn't want to leave his locker. And now so we're not getting that environment from the Torrent, and so it's a lot harder to get a sense of that. But one thing I will say about Steve O'Rourke, and I've been pretty critical of him, is look, this roster was supposed to be really good The Torrent were supposed to be a championship contender. They were second in odds for the Walter Cup, and they finished dead last in the league. In addition, they don't get the first overall pick. The PWHL has the gold plan. So once you are eliminated, you go into a mathematically limited from the playoffs. You go into a pool, and then the most standing points you accumulate while in that pool then gets you the first overall pick. And the Torrent were the first team eliminated, so they had the earliest shot at accumulating those points, but then they ended up losing in overtime on the last game of the year to Montreal. It was a shootout. And then they end up not getting the first overall pick. So they have maybe the second overall pick, maybe not, because we have expansion, because the PWHL is adding 4 teams and we don't know what's going to happen there. But what is going to happen is that we know that a bunch of stuff is going to happen, by which I mean is that there's going to be, they're adding 4 teams. So they've just increased the size of the league by 50%. We've gone from 8 teams to 12 teams, and 2/3 of the league is not under contract. This was done deliberately because players don't want to be moving around all the time with expansion. And so there is no expansion draft in the traditional sense because so few players relatively are under contract. I think like only 7 of the 22 or 23 players on the Torrent are under contract next year. And this is the case across the league. There's just infinite free agents. And so this is a good opportunity if you're going to do a reset to say, okay, maybe this coach isn't it. Now, maybe there was just extenuating circumstances. The Olympics were a distraction. It was a Daniel Sordekny who didn't make the Olympic team and was like pretty devastated. And the Olympics were a big distraction and how you play and making the Olympic team. And then some players are trying to play a different style than what they would normally play or naturally play because they feel like that's gives them a better shot at making the Olympic team. And so there's all of this distraction that happened with the Winter Games that don't exist next season. But that being said, there were a couple of things that really bothered me. Now, Dylan from Emerald City Hockey was the first to point this out. And then once he pointed this out, I couldn't unsee it. And I went back and I watched a bunch of games because their games are on YouTube. And this was a consistent thing, which is that the Torrent, they were giving up a lot of defensive rushes the other way, a lot of odd player rushes going the other way. And the reason for that is that they had their defenders pinching in to create more offense. And that's the trade-off that you make. If you're bringing in, you're pinching your defenders and you're getting them closer to the net to create more offense. Well, if there's a turnover, now your defenders are further away from defending their own net and they create, transition going the other way. And that's a trade-off that you make because if you want more offense, then you pinch in your defenders. And if you want more defense, then, you have them play back. This is essentially the lever that, or the dial that Lane Lambert is dialing on the other end of things. And he's going more defense and less offense because of the personnel and just his philosophy and the way he believes hockey should be played. Which again, I don't have any beef with necessarily. I think that's a perfectly acceptable way to play hockey, and it's probably a way to win some hockey games. But the Torrent, I don't think they were getting the offensive trade-off, and so then they were poor defensively, and then you're not getting the thing that you're exchanging that in return, and so it just didn't work. It just didn't work. And whenever you have a super talented team and it is, they're missing the playoffs, you look towards the coach. And, let's take a little break. And then I'm going to tell you about a couple of things specifically in one game in particular that is one of the most disastrous games in terms of altering a franchise's trajectory than I can ever remember. So let's talk about that next. The NBA playoffs are here, and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. Whether you're looking at player props or just following your favorite stars, it adds another level of excitement for every game. And it's a really easy app to navigate and makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Also, incidentally, when I talked about the Torrent having the second best championship odds, I got those from FanDuel. And so was FanDuel. I was to play my game. All right. Let's set the stage. The Torrent are playing Vancouver, and if they win, then they essentially they clinch the first overall pick, or they get real close to it. It's home, and Climate Pledge is going nuts, and it's packed because it's Climate Pledge, and Seattle Torrent fans show up, and the Torrent, they're up 2 goals, less than 4 minutes to go. And then Steve O'Rourke started Carly Jackson, their first start of the year. Didn't do it on their bobblehead night, but did it in this really important game. And I just don't think that they were quite up for it. It's a lot. It's a lot. It doesn't matter who he is. Your first start of the season, and then you're doing it in one of the highest leverage games of the year, is asking a lot. And then the defense in front of CJ was not playing well. They were allowing a lot of shots getting through, and CJ's doing what they can. And then the Torrent, okay, they're up by 2, and then they just start icing the puck. Just icing the puck over and over and over and over again. And they give up a goal, and then they just keep icing the puck over and over and over and over and over again. And that's what it seemed to be. It's just like, we're just going to ice the puck. Well, the problem is when you ice the puck, you cannot change personnel, but the other team can. And so the Torrent are out there, and they're exhausted. They're just absolutely gassed, and they can't change. And so I'll try to win a face off, and then they're like, okay, and then they just ice the puck. And then now it comes back in the zone. You've not killed that much time, and the players are getting more and more tired. And then it's 6-on-5, so you're already at a disadvantage in that way because the Golden Eyes have pulled their goaltender, and then they're shooting for the empty net. But if you don't get it, then you're going to just come back in the zone. And it didn't seem like they were really it honestly didn't seem like they were even going for the empty net that much. It was just like, let's just kill clock. Let's just kill by icing the puck. And as I was watching this isn't hindsight. This isn't one like, oh, well, because they didn't score and they gave up. Because what happened was then the Torrent, they collapsed. They gave up the 2 goals at the end of regulation, and then they ended up losing in overtime. And then that ends up being so consequential because Vancouver then gets the first overall pick, and they get the generational defender in Caroline Harvey, who is maybe the greatest defensive prospect in the history of women's hockey. And because of expansion, and we don't know what the draft order is, the only thing we know is that the first pick will go to Vancouver by the winners of goal plan. After that, who knows? So the Torrent could get the second pick, which, okay, that would be good, but they could get the 5th, the 6th pick, which is then a disaster. And now you've got this team that is underachieving, that really, I think, played very poorly. And I think they were, and I said this to Dylan, that I thought that this was just a really poor coaching job, as is happening even before the collapse happened. Starting a goalie on their first start of the year in such an important game, And then the results being the worst team in the league, despite having one of the most talented rosters in the league. And you get a chance to reset because half the team or half the league, the league is expanded by 4 teams by 50%, and now a third of the league is expansion teams. And this is a good opportunity to reset and try with someone else. And happy trails to Steve O'Rourke. I really did like him. I liked him a whole lot, and I would love to hang out with him sometime. I don't think I ever will. I don't know how that would ever come up, and I certainly don't think I'll be road tripping with him to Florida. But best of luck to you, Steve O'Rourke, and we'll see what happens. I know I've seen some talk about Jessica Campbell. I don't know if she would be interested in being the head coach of the Torrent. I think that the NHL is just a bigger league, and she's already made her place there. And so my suspicion is that she will find herself on an NHL bench somewhere and being excellent there, as she tends to be with her very skilled set. And also she's one of the best skating teachers in the world, and that's very appealing to some NHL team, presumably. So well, that does it for today's bonus emergency episode for Locked on Kraken. We will be back on Monday, and thank you for tuning in to Locked on Kraken. You can find us at David Jones LR on all social media platforms, or at davidjoneslockerroom.com, where we do print coverage of the Seattle Torrent and the Seattle Kraken. And if you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked on Kraken ad free, plus members only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonpodcast.com/everyday to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure this is one of your 2 daily listens for David Jones Locker Room. I am Zane Begg, and I will see you on Monday.